Welcome to Systems Alliance. My name is Jexy, and in this video we're going to go ahead and go over the news that Blizzard has just banned our Hearthstone Pro Player, and for what reason? Oh, that's right. It was for being pro-democracy. So for those of you who haven't been keeping up with international news, there is something big currently going on between China and Hong Kong. There was the one country, two systems agreement that was promised to Hong Kong when the British gave them up, basically allowing them to join China again. So proud to be Chinese, but hey, we're going to do things our way where we have more freedoms, more Western values, all that stuff. I guess the point is, when that was made, you would be hard-pressed to think, especially given the long history and memory of China, that China wasn't at some point going to try and take over. And so they actually started to try to do that with a recent bill which sparked the protests. The bill would have allowed basically any citizens of Hong Kong to be extradited to mainland China, which of course you don't have human rights anymore, so that wouldn't be good. And obviously everyone rebelled against that. Now, the bill, I guess, was taken off the table, but since then it just shows exactly the disconnect between Hong Kong and mainland China. Now, I'll let the history geopolitical buffs in the comment section get into that. I am one myself, but that's not really the point of this video. The point of this video is to highlight the fact that American companies who are involved heavily with Chinese investors are now having to bend to China's every whim. And in this particular case, that's exactly what happened. Blizzard has a game called Hearthstone. Hearthstone has pro players, and during a live stream, a user who goes by the name of Blitzchung, at the end of his interview, basically called for the liberation of Hong Kong. He was supporting democracy, supporting Hong Kong against the authoritarian regime of China and what's going on there. He wore a mask during it, obviously, basically kind of what's going on there. During the protests recently, the government has tried to ban masks, which pretty much went over as well as you think it would. The protests got even worse. So once again, the big disconnect there, but obviously a lot of people pro-democracy, pro-human rights, anti-authoritarian, they are in support of the people of Hong Kong and them rising up against the things that are trying to be imposed on them. He was not only taken off the air after the interview, but Blizzard took away his prize money and they banned him for an entire year just for that one saying at the end. And the two people who were interviewing him were also taken off the air and fired by Blizzard just for even having the interview with him. And at first it was reported they had nothing to do with it. They did ask him to repeat what he said at the end, which was calling for the liberation of Hong Kong. They asked him to repeat it in Mandarin. He did so. They even put their heads down at the end. It doesn't matter. Blizzard apparently wants none of that because it's so afraid, like what happened with the NBA, where China started not televising their games, breaking deals with the Houston Rockets over a single tweet that went against anything China might have wanted it to go against. This is what happens when Chinese businesses, backed by the government, interact with our businesses, which are not. They are free to do what they want and free to partner with Chinese companies. But in doing so, they give up freedom not to the American government or any governments out west. They give it up, apparently, because they care about money more than human rights, they give it up to China. So Blizzard said Blitzchung violated the 2019 Hearthstone Grandmaster competition rules. So what rules in there can possibly be it's against the rules to be pro-democracy, pro-freedom, anti-authoritarian? What rules in there exactly say that? Or they just say no political stuff at all, in which case maybe they're covered. Let's go ahead and check out the rule that Blizzard says was violated. So the rule is section 6.10, and that reads, engaging in any act that, in Blizzard's sole discretion, brings you into public disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard's image will result in removal from Grandmasters and reduction of the player's prize total to $0, in addition to other remedies which may be provided for under the handbook and Blizzard's website terms. So to me that's significant because it says it's up to Blizzard's sole discretion. So the actual rule is pretty murky. It doesn't say if you mention anything political, you are banned. It doesn't say that. It just says sole discretion. So Blizzard has 100% authority to determine what might be offensive to other people. And apparently freedom and supporting one's people and supporting basic human rights is offensive to some people who apparently are giving Blizzard a lot of money. And whether that's a business or not, we know that the business is backed by the government over there in China, and thus it is deemed offensive. The same thing just happened recently with the NBA, and the NBA has also been raked over the coals by people who are pro-democracy, pro-freedom, pro-human rights, and the NBA has actually finally come back from that. At first, they were just so worried, oh my God, we're going to lose the Chinese money, the Chinese market. All our games aren't being televised there. Quick, say you love China. Just say it. Everyone apologize. I mean, players apologizing? Do you even know what you're saying? And if you do, that's even worse because you're going back on what you actually believe. Why? To make China happy? And by China, I mean the government, not necessarily the people. But the fact that that's what's going on is pretty pathetic. I mean, no backbone at all, completely spineless. But the NBA did actually come back and they said the following. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, called CCTV's decision not to air Thursday's preseason game between the Nets and Lakers unfortunate, but added that if that's the consequence of us adhering to our values, we still feel it's critically important to adhere to those values. So, wow, that's a pretty big statement right there. I mean, coming from what it was before and saying, hey, not only are we not going to regulate anything that our players and our people say, and we couldn't be in business trying to do that, which it seemed like they were trying to do, they said, now our values come first. So that's a pretty big turnaround for the NBA. I at least give them credit for that. Then again, they're here in America, and the backlash they were facing here was something that they also didn't want to deal with. So I guess they deemed that maybe they might lose more money from the American audience than from the Chinese audience, which is their fastest growing audience. But hey, they made a business decision. Maybe they made a moral decision. But let's see what Blizzard had to say in their official blog post as a response to this. Grandmasters is the highest tier of Hearthstone esports, and we take tournament rule violations very seriously. We'd like to re-emphasize tournament and player conduct within the Hearthstone esports community from both players and talent. While we stand by one's right to express individual thoughts and opinions, players and other participants that elect to participate in our esports competition must abide by the official competition rules. So you said you stand by the rights to express thoughts and opinions, but you don't. That's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie by Blizzard, because how could you? How could you say you support it and then ban someone? And not only that, you support people's thoughts and ideas, and yet when you look at the forums, they have locked the thread regarding this because they didn't want to hear people's thoughts and opinions on what they had done. So not only do you ban someone for a sentence just for speaking in his mind, someone who is from there and wants to support human rights and the people's fight for it, but then you don't even want to hear the backlash to it because you don't actually support people voicing their opinion. And obviously people have said this should be hilarious at next BlizzCon. Not only did they have the whole Diablo Immortal thing going on, which, by the way, funded by Chinese company, so no surprise there that Blizzard's caving in. But now people are saying at next BlizzCon, people should just go in there and start free Hong Kong chants and things like that. And you know what? It's probably going to happen. I can't, between that, Diablo Immortal, do not have phones, everything else that's going on with Blizzard right now, all the shady monetization practices that they have going on, I can't wait. I think it's going to be hilarious. But right now, this isn't hilarious. And it's not hilarious because it's another example of American companies thinking that they're on a level playing field where they have autonomy, they don't have to worry about the government getting involved. And yet when the Chinese money comes into them, they are controlled by a government. And this is an example of it. If you were truly free, in a truly free market, you would allow players to say anything they need to, speak their mind. Blitzchung wasn't calling for the cops to be beaten up. He wasn't calling for that. He wasn't calling for anything super violent or crazy going on. But yet, he was banned. And unlike some of those in the NBA, Blitzchung, when interviewed by IGN afterwards, said he expected the ban after saying what he did. So he knows that Blizzard is owned by a country, basically, one that has so much influence and money involved that when they don't like something, they shut it down, because that's what authoritarian governments do. And now Blizzard has to operate just as if it were owned by a Chinese government. Like, that's how they're operating. This is how companies in China operate. Whatever the official government position is, that's the position they take. And it's great that Blizzard can say we support people speaking their mind, but the fact is they actually don't, and they prove it through their actions, not their words. And just to show what the Chinese government is willing to do, take a look at these examples. A Taiwanese horror game was taken offline because it was found later on that it included a joke about the president of China. It included a joke about the president of China, so the game was taken offline. Can you imagine how that would be in America right now with what we have going on? If you said a joke about President Trump, then you're banned, you're taken offline, you lose everything. I feel like everyone would be banned at this point. Whether you like him or hate him, there's jokes. It's called comedy. Some stuff is funny. Are you kidding me? And that was just a joke, not even a slight against the president in terms of like you are really going after him, really, hating, like it's not a joke. That was just a joke. And of course, even South Park was banned. All of South Park has been banned in China, which I'm surprised they even aired it in the first place. And why was it banned? For an episode regarding Chinese censorship. You can't talk bad about anyone or else you're banned. And I get that if you're in China and you say something they don't like, yeah, they can ban you. But Blizzard, yeah, there's Chinese money, but they're not located in China, even if they do stuff there. But they have to bend all of their morals, assuming they have, I apologize, that's assuming Blizzard has morals, but they have to throw all those out the window because they might not get some money. That's where we're at right now with Blizzard. Barack Obama's former Deputy National Security Advisor said the basic human rights of the people of Hong Kong are at stake. So this is a serious issue going on. A lot of people who aren't living in those conditions or over there, you just take your freedoms for granted. But you don't have them in China, and you do a bit in Hong Kong, and just imagine the stuff you do on a daily basis being taken away. That's pretty scary. That's why the protests are happening, and that's why I can't believe these American companies are just giving into that. I know I mentioned the NBA before because both the NBA and Blizzard are both in the news for basically the same thing, but the original apology of the NBA said offending fans in China was regrettable. And what was the offense? For supporting the freedom of the people of Hong Kong. That was offensive, according to the NBA at that time. Now they have since reversed that stance, but the fact that they said that even originally is offensive to democracy. And that was from the Rockets GM. Now let's go ahead and take, head coach Greg Popovich of the Spurs. And he called the president of America, the country they're in, he called President Donald Trump a soulless coward. But yet there was no apology for that. He didn't apologize to supporters of Trump. He didn't apologize to anyone. And he didn't need to, because this is America and you are allowed to say things. And people can say things to him to counter that. It's America. You are allowed to do that. This is a country where you have the freedom to do that. So while the NBA may have changed their tune, Blizzard hasn't, and I don't see Blizzard doing it. Nothing that Blizzard has done or said anytime recently has ever had any sort of moral backbone. So why would I expect them to do it now? I don't. I expect them to fully support this decision, and I can't even imagine the backlash outside of China would be enough to have them reverse their position in China, because the Chinese market for them is where they're getting a lot of their loot boxes, monetization practices, all of that. They're getting so much money from that over there that money comes first, morals come second for Blizzard. So I'd like to get your thoughts on this entire controversy. What are your thoughts about Blizzard and what they've done to Blitzchung with the ban? I mean, a year ban, and take away all his prize money, something that he won fair and square because he supported freedom. Let me also know your thoughts about Chinese government involved with businesses and the impact that's happening when those become American businesses and their reaction to all of this. Let me know all your thoughts about all of this down in the comment section below. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Twitter, and we'll catch you next time.